Welcome, welcome everyone. A beautiful, good day to you. If you haven't already, please go ahead and mute your mics, everyone except for Claudia, who is interpreting into Spanish. This is the Sunday Sounds of Dhamma program. And it means, as usual, we'll have a guided meditation, Dhamma talk, and a bit of time for questions or reflections. And I should announce that I will be leading a residential retreat for starting on Saturday. And so this Sunday Sounds will be paused for 2 weeks, for 2 Sundays. We won't be having either the in-person or the online Sunday program for the first 2 Sundays in June. Then I'll be back. Then I have to go again, and I will go again. I will be in Atlanta. Anybody who's interested in doing a lovely commuter retreat in Atlanta with the Red Clay Sangha. But I believe that we'll have a guest teacher for that one. So it should be on the rest of June. Yeah, I think that's all the announcements for right now. So what I would like to offer this morning is a guided meditation on loving kindness, on metta. So metta is we say it's a quality, and it's a quality of the mind that is related to friendliness. So metta, the word in Pali is metta, and it's related to another Pali word called mitta. Mitta means friend. So it's a kind of friendliness, or a kind of, you could say, universal love or universal kindness. And it is one of the practices that the Buddha taught very often. So we'll give it a try. There are many different ways to do it, but today we're going to just practice using some phrases. So we'll settle into the meditation posture, and then I'll say a phrase, and if that phrase aligns with your intention, then you can repeat the phrase in your mind. And in between the phrases, you're just attending to your body and your breath and settling. And if it doesn't align with your intention, it's really fine to just sit and be still and be aware of that as well. So you can begin by establishing your meditation posture. Please mute your mics if you haven't already. And if you're looking for Spanish interpretation, you can find that on the menu. So finding that upright and balanced posture, so the bones can carry the weight of the body, and perhaps the muscles of the shoulders and the chest and the neck can relax and become soft and wide. And beginning perhaps to notice the sensations of the breath breathing the body. Just becoming aware of them. No need to change anything at all. And I'll offer some phrases of metta, of loving kindness. And you can repeat them in your mind if they align with your intention. May I be well. May I have a sense of well-being. May I be well. And just resting in the body and the breath in between the phrases. May all beings in this room be well. May all the beings in this room have a sense of well-being, deep well-being. May all the beings in this building be well, beings known and unknown. Maybe friends, neighbors, pets, family members, all the beings in this building, maybe some bugs. May they all be well. And expanding a bit further, may all the beings in this town, in this city, may we all be well. All the beings in the town where you are. Beings that you like or that you don't like, or that you don't even know. May all the beings in your town be well. And one big leap. May all beings everywhere, all beings in whatever form they may be, may we all be well. All beings. May we all have deep well-being. All right, friends. Beautiful. So let's move on to the next part, which is the Dhamma talk. And as usual, we're going to begin with the homage to what we call the triple gem. So this is in Pali. That's a language, ancient Indic language related to Sanskrit. And it is, those first 3 lines is just repeating one phrase. It says, and thus, and so honor to Bhagavato, the Blessed One. Arahato means the one who is fully awakened, who has attained all of the 4 stages of enlightenment. Samma Sambuddhassa. Samma means very well or thoroughly, and sam also means the same, more. Completely, thoroughly awakened. Buddha, that term means awake. So it's saying homage to the one who is all of those things. That's the Buddha. That's his title, the person, the historical person who was the first to discover this path of enlightenment. And so then that last line is Buddhang, Dhamman, Sanghang, honor to all three. And again, Buddha as the person, the historical person, but also you could say the quality of awakening in whatever form we find it. Dhamma is the teachings or the truths that those teachings point to, the reality. And Sangha is community. It is all of the folks, and kind of Sangha in the broadest sense is all of the folks who are practicing the what we call the Noble Eightfold Path. So chant it all together. And you're welcome to chant along. Folks online, please keep your mics muted. And if you prefer, you can just let it wash over you. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. In Buddhism, we generally say that there are two wings to the path of relief from suffering, the path of awakening to the truths of our lives, many truths, not just one truth. And we say that those two wings are the wings of wisdom and compassion. Wisdom and compassion. In fact, I think that there are many, many different forms of Buddhism, dozens, if not more than 100, I would imagine, extant. I think you could say that that's true for all of them. It's hard to say that one thing is true about all of them, all of them together, because they are very different forms of expression. But certainly that piece, the wisdom and compassion as two aspects that are fundamental to this path, is something that I think everyone could agree on. And so today, mostly I would like to focus on the compassion part of that equation and talk a little bit about what is meant by compassion in Buddhism, and or particularly early Buddhism and Mahayana Buddhism, which is kind of, you could say, middle Buddhism. And a little bit about how we might practice with that, how we might discover it in ourselves. So compassion means the wish, the desire, the intention for beings to be free from suffering, to be free from dukkha is the word. Dukkha is the word in Pali. It means not just suffering. We often translate it as suffering, but it also means something like the unsatisfactory nature of life. I think of it oftentimes as like this kind of gnawing sense that things are unresolved, that things don't quite square. It actually is related to this concept of if you have a wheel, like a wheel on a chariot back then, and the hole in the wheel is off center, the wheel goes thunk, thunk, like that. That's dukkha. Yeah. So compassion is the intention to minimize that sense of dissatisfaction or that gnawing, unresolved feeling or that painful suffering, physical suffering, all sorts of ways that we can relate to dukkha. The Buddha gave, a very specific definition of that, and I didn't want to spend too much time on that aspect of it yet. Maybe another day, maybe another Sunday. But this beautiful aspiration to be of help, to be one who in some way is relieving the suffering of oneself and others. That is the intention of compassion. And in many ways, the arising of compassion is described as something that begins with our own recognition of suffering in our lives. So you see very clearly that it is a choice, it is an intention, because we can respond to the suffering that we see in our lives with bitterness and with anger and with conflict and with violence, or we can respond to the suffering that we see in our own lives by softening and taking care and attending to that with kindness, with wisdom, with understanding, with compassion. It is a choice how we turn what we experience, whether we turn it toward something that leads to more suffering, or whether we turn it toward something that leads to less. And that's a responsibility. It's a responsibility. It means that you can't say that it's because of the way that you were raised, or because of the environment that you're in, or because your country is at war. It doesn't mean, it means you cannot excuse creating more suffering because you're suffering. You see, you cannot excuse your own suffering because of the external causes. You have it within you to turn that to something that goes in a different direction. in the Zen school and the other Mahayana tradition, you could say middle period Buddhist schools, you have this image of Avalokiteshvara. Avalokiteshvara is what we call a transcendent bodhisattva. She represents, you could say, the face that we put on the universal quality of compassion. So that name, Avalokiteshvara, you can translate it as the one who looks down on the world, the one who sees from above the world. She, he, they. It's sometimes represented as a he, and sometimes represented in a kind of androgynous way, sometimes represented as a female. All sorts of different ways, I suppose, if you're going to respond to all of the suffering of the world. That's what Avalokiteshvara does. Or the other way to translate the name is one who hears the cries, the one who hears the cries of the world. And so this Avalokiteshvara is the Sanskrit name. That's the original Indian name of this being that has been conjured by our imaginations. Or perhaps, is it possible that there was an actual being who made a vow of compassion so strong and over so many lifetimes that they became this thing? I don't know. I suppose it's possible. But there's a very beautiful story about her because she comes to be known in many, many different countries as Buddhism spread outside of India. She becomes a very, very beloved figure, Avalokiteshvara. She's also said that the many names, you might know her by some of her other names. So Chenrezig in Tibetan, or Kanon, or Kanzeon in Japanese, or Guanyin, Guanshuyin in Chinese, or let's see, Kwanseung in Korean. I often forget that one. Kwanang in Vietnamese. So many, many different, you could say, traditions of Buddhism have related to her. In China, she's very, very popular, incredibly popular. So popular that there are these enormous statues of her, hundreds and hundreds of feet high, built to her in various parts of the country. And people come on pilgrimage and visit different Guanyins. There is a small statue of her there in the entranceway to the vihara here. That one is from Hong Kong, actually. That's a replica of a statue of her in Hong Kong. And there's also a small one here next to the new Buddha that we received, this gorgeous new Buddha that we received. There's also a small statue there of Kanzeon or Kanon. And she represents compassion. And, there are many ideas about where her story came from. Lots and lots of different scholars have tried to make ideas about it. But what I want to tell is I want to tell this story of how she is sometimes portrayed as having 11 faces, the 11-face Kuan Yin. So it says that she was trying to save all the many suffering beings in the realms of birth and death. And just as she was carrying all of them into the Pure Land, the Western, what is said to be the Western paradise of Amitabha Buddha, she looked back and saw that all the spaces where she had scooped up all the beings were filling up with new beings who were also suffering. And her head split apart. And this happened 10 times until Amitabha Buddha gives her a head that doesn't split. So this story is meant to say, story is meant to teach us several things. One is that it's a big job to be the compassionate one, that we really are taking on a certain kind of responsibility when we choose to be compassionate in the world, and that we need some help to do that. And the help that we get is from the Dharma, and from the Sangha, and from the Buddha. We get this help so that our hearts don't break and our heads don't split in our efforts to be compassionate. Yeah, so we don't do this alone. We do this as part of a community and as part of a tradition, a very long, long, long tradition. And that's important because it can be very hard to see the suffering of the world. I think many people right now look at the world and think that it really needs some help. Really needs some help. And we would like to be able to help. Sometimes we're not sure about how to do that or what way to do that. And that's understandable. It's understandable that it feels like a big job. And you don't have to take on more than you can. You don't have to take on so much that it overwhelms you. But I think that part of what I want to share today, or part of what I want to encourage, is to think about how not to turn away, how to hear the cries and learn how to bring that steadiness and that awareness and recognition into the world, because we need a world that's willing to see the truths of suffering as much as the truths of wisdom. And so today is this weekend is the 5th anniversary of the death of George Floyd. George Floyd was a Black man who was accused of using a counterfeit $20 bill at a convenience store in Minneapolis. And a white police officer named Derek Chauvin was sent to arrest him, and instead he killed him, murdered him on the street in Minneapolis 5 years ago. And people still remember. People remember. And that became a big movement. And I would suggest it still is. You know, it was 9.5 minutes that Derek Chauvin had his knee on George Floyd's neck. That's a lot of chances. That's a lot of times of choosing not to be compassionate. And why? Because he didn't understand, Derek Chauvin did not understand that his well-being is also tied up with George Floyd's well-being. So this is how wisdom and compassion go together. That we understand that compassion makes sense with everyone, with everywhere, in every place, with everyone at every time. no matter how difficult they are for us, because we understand that our well-being is tied up with their well-being. There's yeah, there's some good friends of mine who are there now today, who are talking to people about how they feel and what they're doing, and remembering, not forgetting. And some change has happened, and probably much more change needs to happen. And part of that change, I would suggest, is the ways in which we can be that voice in the world. You know, um, Shohaku Okumura Roshi, he used to talk a little bit about this relationship between compassion and wisdom, and he would hold up his hand like this. Let's see if I can do it so that y'all can see it online too. He would hold up his hand like this, and he would say, "Right, so it's like the hand." So let me explain that, because a lot of times he would do that, and people were like, "I don't understand what's going on here." So if I'm the thumb, let's say for the sake of discussion, I'm the thumb, and I look at you and you're the finger, and I say, "Oh my gosh, we are nothing alike. We don't even have the same number of joints. We don't have the same function. We don't live in the same part of the world. We are two totally separate things." But that's only if I'm ignorant about the fact of the whole hand, right? Because as soon as I understand the hand, then I could not possibly harm you. I could not possibly think of you as anything other than connected in some way. Mm. So we little by little, we can see this, the nature of interconnection, in very, very, you could say, mundane ways within our lives and within the world, but also much more profoundly within our minds as well. Mm. And in a sense, the softening that can happen around this seeing of suffering, it helps us too. It helps us to carry the weight of our own lives. But to do that, we have to be willing. We have to have two aspects, I would say. We have to be willing to see and to hear. And we have to have the stability that will let us do that without it becoming harmful. We bring that stability of the heart and the mind to attend to what's here and share it with our Sangha. Know that we have help with that. And know that even in the midst of a world with that kind of suffering, we can be compassionate. We can learn to come to the world with metta in our hearts, with loving kindness in our hearts and minds. And I understand that that's a big ask. I understand that that stability that comes from metta is something that may seem far off for some folks. But it is the request that the path makes of us. To learn to have our hearts and minds be so wide and so clear and so full of that beneficial intention that we are not set off balance by the suffering that we see. That is the promise and the request of metta. And the Buddha sets a very high bar for this. Some of you have heard me talk in recent months about the simile of the saw. Serrucho, the simile of the saw, right? In which the Buddha is talking about a situation where what happens if somebody speaks harmfully to you? He says, people will speak to you in many different ways. He's teaching the monks and nuns about this. He says, yeah, people will speak to you in many different ways. They might speak to you with kindness, or they might speak to you harshly. They might speak to you violently, or they might speak to you calmly. They might speak to you respectfully or disrespectfully. They might speak to you in any number of different ways. And then he says, but even if they were to cut you limb from limb with a saw, if you had animosity toward them, hatred toward them, that would not be practicing my way. So no matter what anybody said to you, and no matter what Derek Chauvin has done, they are deserving of our compassion. They are deserving of our compassion. But our hearts have to be really wide for that to be true. Really, really wide. Because a contracted mind, a hating mind, is a reactive mind. But a wide, clear, kind mind can meet even this with loving kindness. So I want to leave you with a poem by Izumi Shikibu. And sorry, Claudia, I forgot that I was going to share this poem. So hopefully it won't be too tricky. for you. Actually, let me send you the photo. It's a good way. I'll send you the photo really quick, Claudia, who's interpreting. Claudia. Here we go. Haha. Thanks for your patience, everyone. This is new, new territory. I'm trying to help Claudia to be a good interpreter there for the Spanish. So this is from a book called Ink Dark Moon, a lovely collection of poems that were translated by Jane Hirschfield and Mariko Aratani of two women poets from about 10th century Japan. And one of them is Izumi Shikibu. Izumi Shikibu. Shikibu is actually her title. It means she is the poet laureate. She's like the poet of the court of the emperor of Japan at that time, 10th century. And Izumi is her name. Very, very famous poet. She is very honored in many different places around Japan. But so this is one translation of something that she said, that she wrote actually, because she would write down these short poems. So she says, first of all, there's a note from her about when she wrote this down. She says, on the night of the 6th, the sound of the monk's voice in the evening reciting the sutras mingled with the sound of the rain, the incessant rain. And truly, this seemed to be a world of dreams. But then she says this poem, because it's not a world of dreams. Should I leave this burning house of ceaseless thought and taste the pure rain's single truth falling upon my skin? So this poem has at least 2, if not 3, references to the Lotus Sutra, and I won't go into all of that, but just to say, should I leave this burning house? So that's the world, the painful, the world of difficulty and dukkha, suffering, and of ceaseless thought, right? Her response and reactivity going on, right? She's seeing her mind agitated. She says, should I leave this and taste the pure rain? What is the rain? That's the Dharma rain. That's a reference to the Lotus Sutra. The Dharma rain, soothing Dharma rain, falls on everyone equally. Soothing rain of the truths. So shall I leave the burning house of ceaseless thought and taste the pure rain's single truth falling upon my skin? Yeah. So the question is, shall I be in the world? And the answer is yes. Shall I be in the world? In this world of Dharma. In this world that badly needs our compassion. Yes. Yes. All right, folks. So we have a bit of time for comments, questions, reflections on the meditation or on the Dhamma talk. Yes, Joso, Olivia.
Oh, first of all, thank you very much. I think maybe you can see it. There's a 11-headed Avalokiteshvara hanging in the background. So your talk was very close to my heart, and I would like to share something personal and ask a question. Um, like some of you know, when my mom got very ill and died last year, and I cared for her in her last weeks, and there were moments when my heart was very heavy, and I called out to Avalokiteshvara because I needed compassion, and I know that there was more compassion that I could care for that moment, and I wanted my mom and I wanted me to be carried. And I felt this caring. And in the last month, I sit daily with this compassion and met her. I invite it to my pain. And I noticed that this compassion is not something I take from outside into me. It's something that's in me, like this space is inside of me. So I, for myself, investigated that metta, mudita, karuna, and also pekka, it's always accessible. It's in us. And so my question is a little bit, is it part of our true nature, or is it something that we learn?
Yeah. I honestly think that it is part of, it's natural for humans. Let me put it that way. It's absolutely natural for humans. I think it was Margaret Atwood, was it? Who was an anthropologist who studied very, very early humans. And somebody asked her, how did she know when human beings became humans? Like, at what point did it transition from being animals to being humans? And she could have said many different things, like using tools, or, living together in a village, or, whatever it was. But what she said was, she said she knew when she found the bones, a healed leg bone, because what that meant was that someone had cared for that being long enough that they didn't die. They weren't just left in the forest to die of their broken leg, but that they had been cared for. And that was that transition between just treating one another as animals might, and actually becoming human. So I think that there is, and we understand intuitively, this is why babies cry, right? Because we understand intuitively that we are beings who are dependent on each other. We are beings who are dependent on each other. Yeah. Margaret Mead, thank you so much. Susan Young, thank you. Not Margaret Atwood, but Margaret Mead, thank you. Yes, and so again, I think this is why the Buddha says that Sangha is the whole of the spiritual life, right? We depend on each other. We depend on each other. So what you're finding there in you, Joso, is something that is natural to humans, and it has been, you could say, you're finding it and expressing it in a way that has been shaped by the Dhamma. Yeah. And I will say one more thing, and then we will probably close at that point. But just to say, when you say true nature, what is our true nature? You have to be careful with that. Our true nature is impermanence and interconnectedness and emptiness, and right? That is the only thing that you can say is true about our true nature. The three, what we call the three marks of reality, or the three, people call them the three marks of existence. But even that, the Buddha would probably correct you, because the Buddha always said that we should not fall on the side of affirming existence or negating existence, but rather that we understand that the true nature of all things, including us, is this, you could say, kind of temporally arising, ceasing thing, right? That those three marks of existence are impermanence, the dukkha, meaning what, the unresolvedness or the unsatisfactoriness or the difficulty of that, and non-self, anatta, means there's nothing permanent about it or independent about it. It is just a deeply conditional, interconnected phenomena, this thing and everything. Yeah. Okay, so some people are starting to yawn, so it's probably about time to get going. And Dana, did you have an announcement you wanted to make?
Yes, thank you. The practice of giving and receiving has been part of Buddhism since its inception. Giving to the Dassanaya Buddhist Community supports our guiding teacher Dhammadīpā, the physical location of the vihara, and allows us to continue to offer Buddhist teachings in support of the awakening of all beings. Our support pages on the website under the support tab offer a variety of ways of donating. And in addition, if you aren't signed up and want to the newsletter, it gives you calendar events and a letter from Dhammadīpā. That's also on the lower part of the homepage. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes. So may the beautiful, beneficial momentum and results that we've set into motion here today by our practice, may it be a cause for our relief from suffering, mental suffering and physical suffering, and all forms of dukkha, and may it be a cause for the relief for all beings from dukkha, by the power of the Buddhas, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, and each one's efforts, may all beings be liberated. Thanks, everyone. Be well.